At Ohio State, I think Ryan Day has made some very underrated moves in the offseason. You Ohio State fans who are hardcore, you follow it year-round, you probably know about this, but outsiders, maybe not. I think Ryan Day has upgraded his staff, and in time, I think the rest of the country will come to realize this. The best always do this. The best find a way, even if they're at or near the top of the sport, they're always looking to upgrade everything, and that includes coaching staff. I go back to 2018. Alabama, kind of like Ohio State just did. Alabama makes it all the way to the national title game, and they got run out of the building by Clemson. And so you could have two trains of thought. You could either say, oh man, we're really close. Let's not change anything. We're really close. Or you could be like Nick Saban and say, this team wasn't good enough. Our dynamics here were not good enough. We got to get better. And they got better. And the coaching roster that Alabama trotted out there in 2020 ran circles around the one they had just 2 years prior. And that's why, well, one of the reasons why they won a national championship. But it's always a balancing act. And Ryan Day's finding this out. All the other coaches find this out. Here's what you want. Everyone complains when their coaching staff is too old. LSU was a big complaint from them last year. Coaching staff was a little bit too old. They were detached from the reality of the younger generation, and they didn't relate to kids. And so then you want to get younger. Everyone wants a youth movement. But then, you know what else everyone wants? Everyone wants wisdom and experience in the coach's room. Well, how do you balance this? How do you get the youth and the exuberance while also having the experience and the wisdom? Well, the answer is a mixture of those elements. It's a balancing act. How do you find that proper balance, though? That's one of the many challenges of being a head coach. So what do we know about Ohio State last year? Buckeyes, circa 2020. They were a really good team. Really good. I thought they belonged in the national championship game. We could have the whole argument about the playoff structure. Luckily, 2020 is a one-off. So any argument made last year hopefully is irrelevant to the future. But here's what we do not know. We don't know what their internal QCRs, quality control reports, said about their own dynamics. And more specifically, we can't know exactly how Ryan Day graded his own staff. It's one thing to grade your team, but one of the things that I think would fascinate you guys, if we could ever be a fly on the wall, is when self-scouting happens, self-evaluation happens, and your coaches are getting graded. Now that's a whole new science, and that's a whole new realm of the sport that's behind like 5 curtains. No one would ever give you a peek behind those 5 curtains. But Ryan Day, at the end of this past year, he saw Greg Madison retire, co-defensive coordinator, had been at it for nearly half a century, and so he walks out. So Ryan Day has got some moves to make, and he made 4 of them, really. I want to talk about 2 of them right now, and then the other 2 in just a second. Matt Barnes is the new secondary coach there. Also, Parker Fleming is the new special teams coordinator. Now, those names you may or may not recognize. I don't know how much you pay attention to the sport, but they went internal for both of the hires, is my point. And this kind of circles back around to what having elite culture allows you to do. If you got really, really good culture, it's that thing that everyone preaches, but really very few elite cultures exist out there. Not just in college football, but in business and in life in general. But if you get one, and I believe they have one at Ohio State, you don't have to go outside the 4 figurative walls of your football complex very often, because you got qualified candidates who already speak your language and who already understand everything about the organization that you can just promote from within. The best organizations are able to do that. In fact, you're working in that organization, and your motivation, instead of in a normal organization being, I got to get out of here so I can advance. In an elite culture, in an elite organization, your motivation is, I got to get better because I'm about to advance on this ladder right here. Well, Matt Barnes and Parker Fleming just did that. What does that sound like, by the way? The reason I think it's so personal and so relatable for Ryan Day is because that's exactly what happened to him. Not too long ago, you get the breaking news on your phone. Urban Meyer's out. Urban Meyer's retiring. What in the world? Ohio State's open? Wow, what a national coaching search. This is about, wait a second, they just hired Ryan Day. Ryan who? Some of you didn't even know who Ryan Day was. And they went internal. Now remember, there was no problem at Ohio State. It's not like the Tennessee job where there's this huge looming NCAA black cloud. The Ohio State job was one of the most elite jobs in the country. They could have gotten virtually anyone they wanted to come to Columbus. They didn't even leave town. They looked right inside the athletic department. They looked right inside the football complex. They said, Ryan, could we talk to you for a second? You're the head coach now. You're the captain now. Take it. And he's taken it. And they're still elite, if not recruiting at an even higher level than they were when Urban Meyer was there. He understands how this works because it happened to him. Now he promoted from within. So that's part one. Both those guys are young, though. Both of those guys probably don't have the decades and decades of seasoning and experience that you would want. So what else does Ryan Day do? Well, he goes out, kind of like Nick Saban and Kirby Smart we were just talking about, hiring those analysts in the offseason. What do you know about Paul Rhodes? You probably remember him once upon a time as a former head coach. Have you heard his name lately? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. Well, he just got brought in at Ohio State as a defensive analyst. What about Todd Fitch? He just got brought in. Former coordinator, you've heard his name probably for a while, just got brought in as an offensive analyst. You won't see these guys on the field. If you got a press credential, you may see them in the press box on game days, but there you have the balance being struck. So they got younger. The guys that are going to go out recruiting, the guys that are on the field, they got a little bit younger in the aggregate. However, in terms of the overall makeup, when they're sitting in a staff meeting, Ryan Day, you can tell. He doesn't really mince words very much. You can tell already listening to him throughout spring, they don't think they hit a home run. They think they hit a grand slam with this mixture. I think they did too. I think probably what's going to happen if they get quarterback figured out is they're going to win the Big Ten again. They're going to get in the playoff again. And you're probably going to look at them and you're going to say, they look a little bit better. How in the world does a team lose Justin Fields and get better or at least match the production? Well, what you'll have is you'll have a better overall coaching mixture. And you never know what that does over the course of a season because there's this other word in this sport, development. We talk about it a lot here, where we don't just assume players are who they are when they come out of high school. We don't just assume the star ranking is going to forever define them. And 3 stars are never capable of playing to a 5-star level, and a 5-star is never capable of going bust. Development matters. The best staffs develop. James Franklin's got a big chore right now trying to develop the linebacker and safety positions in Happy Valley. Well, that's similarly what Ohio State has to do. They're trying to retool their entire secondary right now. They were terrible. They were 122nd nationally in FBS pass defense last year. That's horrid. It's horrific. They got to retool that. You got to develop the guys you have on campus. It's not a transfer portal fix. You got to have coaches who can go recruit, and you got to have coaches who can develop the guys you have on campus. I think Ryan Day's got a good mixture right now.